somebody is kind of not being on the level, or they're not being real, or they're not being themselves. They come across as fake. And how do you feel about someone like that when you are around them? Do you want to associate more with them? Do you want to, go out for dinner with them and get to know them better? The chances are no, you don't, because there's something about them that kind of turns you off, or that doesn't really excite you very much. So please, above all, make sure you do your research, and once you begin that application process to complete it and get your applications ready, please, please, please be yourself. Now, let's move to some tips on how to get positively noticed. And I don't mean here how to manipulate the admissions committee to like me. We just said, you need to be yourself. I'm talking about some genuine ways that you can stand out. These are things, one of the benefits, I suppose, of my having an opportunity to present this information to you is that I've actually done the work of evaluating applicants for many, many years. I've literally read thousands of applications. Among other institutions, at the University of Chicago Graduate School of Business, it was I who made the final decision on all full-time applications for their MBA, full-time MBA program. I was the one who was doing that. So this comes from my own experience as a dean of admissions. And these are tips that will actually help you stand out, not the other way around. First of all, send in a cover letter with your application. This can be very helpful, and what you want to do is send this through the regular mail. Don't send an email message. During the application season, the height of applications at Chicago or Columbia when I worked there, I would get 200 or 300 emails a day, per day. I had to have people help me with them because it was impossible to keep up with all of the email. So don't send an email. Send this letter through the regular mail. Hand write the envelope. One student asked me at one point, should I hand write the letter? No, you don't have to go that far. You can type the letter, but hand write the envelope. If you know the name of the dean of admissions, put it on there. If not, just admissions committee. But hand write the envelope, and then about three paragraphs in this letter is what you should have. And they ought to be something like this. I hope you'll write this down. The first paragraph, something along the lines of, Dear Admissions Committee, my name is Don Martin, my name is so-and-so, and I'm very excited. I am about to submit my online application for your master's program, or yesterday I submitted my online application to your program I'm very excited about this, and I thank you for the opportunity to submit my application. Something like that in the first paragraph. The second paragraph is crucial. This is very, very important. In the second paragraph, what you want to do is let the institution know why you chose to apply to that particular program. And by that, I mean you need to provide them with a few reasons that do not apply to any other program that you're applying to. In other words, when I worked at Columbia, oftentimes applicants said they were applying to Columbia because it was in the Ivy League. Well, that doesn't help at all. There are many other schools that are in the Ivy League. That's not a unique quality of the program at Columbia or this state university or the university of this. You need to let them know that you did your homework. And there's a couple of specific, there could be an internship program that this institution offers that you haven't found anywhere else, and that's very important to you. They may have an overseas study program in Ghana, and that's a country and a culture and a people and a language that has appealed to you and that you want to pursue in your career. They may have a student organization doing some amazing volunteer work within the inner city of the institute where the institution is located that no other student organization offers. Whatever it is, you need to be very specific, at least two reasons. And you say at the beginning of this paragraph, I spent my time doing my research, and I've decided to apply to your program because this is very, very impressive to these individuals. I'm telling you, it means a lot. And finally, the third paragraph, let them know you want to attend. Tell them, I would really like to be part of your student body. I hope you'll give me that opportunity. And to that end, if you have further questions, if you would like me to do an interview, I would love the chance to do one. If you wish to call me or contact me, and then please hear this, folks. Do not send them your email address. They already have it in your application. Send them, and they already have this too, but in this letter, put your phone number. They will call. They may just pick up the phone to call you, and it would be very helpful if they did. It'll give you a chance to speak with them if they have a question. But by the way, if you provide them with your phone number, you better be sure that your answering machine message is very, very professional. I could write a book about the answering machine messages I used to get from applicants. It used to absolutely floor me. Some of the things that were said, I can't repeat them on this webinar. You know, or some of them would say, "Yo, man, this is me. You know what to do." Beep. I mean, it was just absolutely, unbelievably unprofessional. So make sure you let them know that you're ready to speak with them, and give them your phone number, and have a professional, very, very clear answering machine message ready if they don't happen to reach you when they call. So this is you know, I'll close by saying, when I was working at Columbia and the University of Chicago and Northwestern and Wheaton, if I would get hand or regular letters through the mail from applicants, I asked my assistant to hold them for me, and then I would pair them with the application when it came through for me to evaluate. Now, did that student always get admitted? No. But if it was a decision between waitlisting or admitting, or deny and waitlist, that often could put me over the edge based on the time that they took to communicate with me in a way that many applicants did not. So keep in mind, a cover letter like this can be very important. Tip number 2. I know this goes without saying, but I need to say it because it so often doesn't happen. Please follow directions. Why? Well, if you can't follow directions as a graduate school applicant, you're an adult, and you've been given some instructions to follow, and you're not able to do that, that's going to beg the question with the admissions committee, well, if this person can't even follow directions as an applicant, how are they going to be as a student? Will they be able to follow directions the whole time they're here with us as a student? Some examples. If they give you a word limit on your essays or your personal statement or your statement of purpose, whatever they call it, please give them what they asked for. We had a 750-word personal statement for Columbia when I worked there. Do you know what one applicant sent me one time? A 100-page thesis. He had another master's degree. His thesis he sent in the mail. Can you believe it? 100 pages. That was his answer to the question. Well, obviously, that didn't help us at all. It didn't answer any of the questions that were in that personal statement that we wanted to know about. And it certainly was a negative reflection on him. Recommendation letters. If they ask you for 2 letters of recommendation, give them 2 letters of recommendation. Now, I will say this, if for some reason you feel that you just absolutely need a 3rd letter of recommendation for whatever, if there's something going on and you need a 3rd letter, then what you do is contact the admissions office. This one you can just send an email and say, I am wondering if I would have your permission to send a 3rd letter of recommendation. I think it would be very helpful. In many cases, in like something like that, I'm sure they'll say yes. But if they ask for 2, don't send them 7. That does not help you. If there are certain application procedures that they're asking you to follow, maybe you don't understand all of them, maybe they don't make sense to you. If you need clarification so you understand something better, okay, of course you should ask. But once you've understood what it is they're telling you to do, please do it. Make sure, don't hurt yourself because you did not follow directions. That is absolutely critical. Okay, moving right along. Number 3. Oh boy, I cannot stress the importance of this. Use good recommenders. Now, many times applicants think, oh, you know, they're not going to really look at these because who's going to ask somebody to recommend them that's not going to say good things? And you're right about that to a point. That's true. The worst thing, obviously, the kiss of death to any application is to have a recommender there that says, I don't recommend this applicant. They'll be denied immediately. That happens 1 in a million. That hardly ever happens. Usually what happens is the opposite. Recommenders try to make this applicant look absolutely perfect. They don't have any weaknesses. Oftentimes there's a little box in the recommendation form where the recommender is asked to evaluate you on qualities like motivation, teamwork ability, communication skills, initiative, leadership, whatever the items are. And then there are boxes where the recommender can check, you know, poor, average, good, excellent, or superior, something like that. Oftentimes, I would see recommendation letters where every single box of every area that was being evaluated was superior. Well, that made that applicant, that they lost credibility with me. No one, including the person you're listening to who is doing this presentation, me, nobody's perfect. We all have better points and less better points, and that's okay. We're looking for human beings in the admissions process. We're not looking for people who act like they're perfect. Once again, when you do that, when you're not yourself, it's going to hurt you. Keep in mind, fame and prestige does not help you. I got a letter of recommendation for an applicant to the University of Chicago Booth School of Business one time that came from the then Vice President of the United States, a gentleman by the name of Al Gore. This letter was 2 sentences long. It didn't even address me. It just said, "Dear sir, I'm writing to recommend," I forget the name of the gentleman. Let's say his name was David. "I'm writing to recommend David to your school." That was the first sentence. The second sentence, "David is an upstanding citizen of the United States of America, and he will be a phenomenal human being." Well, I'm sure that's true, but that does not tell me anything about what we wanted to know from a recommender. That applicant, by the way, ended up being denied. That didn't help him. Make sure that the folks that you choose to recommend you know you well enough to complete what they're asked to complete. And I will tell you this, when I say properly completing the form here, number 3, they need to provide examples of what they say about you. If they say, you know, Sally is an absolutely phenomenal communicator. Peter is a wonderful leader. He just has natural-born leadership. Whatever it is they're going to say about you that's positive, they need to back that up. They need to provide examples of why they think that you are a great communicator or a good leader or whatever it is. They need to say, and here is why I know that to be true. Also, back to number 2, they need to know you well. They need to know you well enough to talk about an area that you need to work on. If they come across, again, like you have all positives and there's nothing about you that needs, you know what, folks, I'm a very impatient person. I admit it. I know it. My family knows it. If you talk with them, they would tell you. Hopefully not too much. But I'm an impatient person. It's something I have to work on. It's just one of my things in my life. We all have them. That doesn't make you a bad applicant. It makes you a more desirable applicant, actually, because what it shows is that you know yourself well enough and your recommenders know yourself well enough that you're willing to talk about something that you're working on. That's a plus. That is, do not, again, yield to the temptation. Please tell your recommenders, do not evaluate me as superior on everything. And make sure you put in there something that I need to work on. That's very helpful. Tip number 4, smile, ladies and gentlemen. What do I mean by that? Maybe you're smiling right now when you heard me say this. Smiling is part of the universal language. It just helps the situation, no matter what it is. When you smile at someone, you ease tension. You lighten the situation a little bit. You cause a more kind reaction to yourself. And this could be whether you're in person or like what we're doing right now. Now I'm going to try something here. We'll see what you think of this. I'm going to say hello to you without smiling. Then I'm going to, and I'll say like, hello, how are you? And then I'm going to say, hello, how are you, with a smile. And I'm not trying to embellish this, but just listen for a minute. Okay, here's without a smile. Hello, how are you? Now here's with a smile. Hello, how are you? It just sounds better, doesn't it? It's not the other one didn't sound awful, but smiling just helps a little bit. So if you go on campus for an interview or a campus visit, or you're visiting a class, or you're going to talk with a current student or a faculty member or an alumnus, or you're having a phone conversation, whatever it is, just smile. It absolutely can help. And it may impress someone about you when they meet you. You never know what it is that could stand out among some of these tips I'm giving you. So smile. Number 5, critical tip here. Keep your cool no matter what happens. Oh my gosh, I could write another book about this. Admissions staff make mistakes. They're going to, it could be that, now, it used to be that when applications were submitted, you sent everything paper. All the recommendation letters, essays, it all came in as paper, and people opened it and put it in files. Now your applications come in online. But in many instances, everything that you send in is still printed out on paper, placed in an application folder, and then it circulates to the admissions committee for them to make decisions on you. It could be that one of your letters of recommendation accidentally gets filed in somebody else's who's next in the alphabet to you. It just that they accidentally put it in. Or that one of your test score reports falls behind the file cabinet in the admissions office and is gone until someone finds it when they're cleaning next summer. And so you get an email message from the admissions office saying your application is incomplete. Once again, I could write a book at the reactions. I had an applicant, we called him to tell him, I guess for some reason I was helping with this and I called him. He got so upset with me and he said, I sent that UPS, I sent that, and read to me the tracking number. The whole 50-character tracking number. I said, sir, I'm not questioning that you sent this. I'm not questioning that at all. In fact, I'm trying to help you. If you get a call, if something goes wrong, if you arrive on campus and you were supposed to have an interview and they don't have you down or whatever it is, if something, now will that be pleasant? No. But remember, this is a practice opportunity to keep your cool no matter what happens. I'm going to give you one final story. This is probably my favorite story of all my years in admissions. We had an applicant. We lost her application when I was working at the University of Chicago. This was before online applications. We lost it. We could not find it. And this was during the time I was calling admitted students to tell them they got in. So I had to call her to tell her that we didn't have her application. She thought I was initially calling her to tell her she was admitted. Could you imagine going from hearing that we haven't made, thinking you got admitted, to hearing that we haven't made a decision on your application, to hearing that we don't even have it anymore? Could you imagine? Do you know what she said to me when I told her? She said, you know what, I'm sorry about that. What can I do? I decided right then and there she was admitted. Thank goodness when she did resend her application, it was great. But you never know what your reaction when something goes wrong can do to help you increase your credibility with the admissions committee. So keep your cool. Tip number 6, be sure to ask questions that demonstrate you did your homework. So there are 2 questions you should never, ever ask the admissions office, and unfortunately, you might think, oh my word, when you see them here on the screen, you mean to tell me people actually ask, what are your application deadlines and do you offer financial aid? Absolutely. I can't tell you how often those questions are asked. It's unfortunate. And as soon as you ask questions that demonstrate you didn't do your homework, once again, you've lost some credibility with the admissions office. And speaking of questions, we have a few more slides left here, and then our presentation will be concluded for this morning. So if you have questions for me about anything I'm saying or something I don't talk about that you would like to ask me, please be asking these questions so Laura can ask them to me when we finish here. The final tip for today, be creative with your application, but don't be silly or outlandish. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, I'm putting this first item here because it happened to me more often than you would realize. Don't send flowers or I got flowers from an applicant on Valentine's Day. I swear to you, 6 red roses this applicant sent with a note that said something like, this was at Chicago, Dear Chicago, University of Chicago, we were made for each other. You are the school for me. I will never let you down. Now, in some ways, I guess that was creative, but that's way over the top. Don't send flowers. Don't send candy. Now, if you want to be a little humorous in an essay question and you feel comfortable doing that, that's part of who you are, then go for it. Use humor appropriately. Maybe use a story about your life to illustrate something that you're talking about in your essay or in your interview. That's appropriate. One student actually did an acronym of his name. He took his first name and last name, each of the letters in the left-hand column, and then provided words that he thought described him. I thought that was kind of nice, just something creative. But don't go overboard. Don't be outlandish. And I probably should have added here, I'll add, don't be desperate. Don't be calling into the admissions committee every minute asking about things. Be careful how often you contact them. That can become overkill and can make you look desperate. So I hope these tips have been helpful to you this morning. I hope that none of them are real rocket science per se, but I promise you, practicing these tips could absolutely make a difference for you as an applicant. Now, I'm going to jump ahead here to one quick slide, then we're going to go back to Q&A. I want to tell you a little bit more just about my work. I do offer coaching, one-on-one coaching with prospective and current graduate students. You can read this here on the screen. If this is of interest to you, my phone number is at the bottom of the screen, my office number, as well as my email address. If you would be interested in working with me one-on-one as you think about your graduate school experience, I hope you'll feel free to let me know. And whoops, I went the other way. Now, I'm hoping that some of you, if not many of you, have asked some questions that Laura will want to ask me, and I am going to stop here for just a moment and ask if, Laura, do we have any questions that have come in as I've been presenting so far?
Thanks, Don. We actually have some really excellent questions. I'm excited.
Wonderful. I had a feeling we would, so let's dig in here.
All right. Lucia asked, in regards to a personal statement, do you recommend telling a story or being creative in some way with a short prompt, like Columbia's, or being more straightforward with your career goals rather than the reason behind your drive?
That's a very good question, and maybe this answer will be a little bit nebulous, but all of those are effective in my opinion. Here again, it boils down to what you most would like to communicate. I don't, as long as you're following the directions of the question and answering. Now sometimes if they just say write a personal statement, then you have a little bit of freedom to decide what you want to share. But if they're giving you some specific components of what the personal statement or essay should include, as long as you answer it, doing a PowerPoint presentation, being creative, just simply stating your career goals, as long as you're doing that and you are being yourself in the process, any of those options to me would be good. It's really at that point it's a personal choice. Very good question. Okay.
Okay. We have Nadia, and Nadia wants to know where is the most accurate source of information about the program that you're applying to.
Well,
I guess the contact information and make sure that you're clear on the expectations of the application.
Okay, good question, Nadia. In terms of once you've identified a particular institution and program in which you are interested, their website will be the best source for you. Now, how well some of these institutions do on their websites is debatable. Some of the websites I've seen are not as helpful as they could be, but many of them are. And what you would do is log on to the website of the university and then locate the particular program you're interested in on their website. They almost always provide contact information for the admissions office, almost always a phone number and an email address. And again, as you do your research, if there's something you need help with that you're not finding on the website, it's perfectly acceptable. Those are the questions to ask because that shows you're really trying to get more information about the program. But I would say the website, once you've identified the institution, their own website would be good. If you're doing some upfront research, obviously there are various options out there, but as I said, GradSchools.com, I would highly recommend you start off doing an initial search on GradSchools.com, or you could go onto the internet and plug in, let's say you're interested in a master's program in psychology, you could obviously put in graduate program, master's degree programs in psychology in the United States or in Europe or wherever. You could definitely do that, and I'm sure GradSchools.com will come up if you do it that way too. But that would be my response on that question, Nadia. Very good question.
Thank you, Don. We're going to keep on going because the questions are flowing in.
Good.
Reza, and I hope that I'm pronouncing your name right, says, hi, Dr. Martin. Due to your experience, is it true that one of the reasons to send applications early is because admissions professionals get fatigued after a couple hundred essays and applications?
I'm sorry, I missed the latter part of that question. I was listening, but can you read it to me one more time, Laura? I'm sorry.
Sure. Is it true that one of the reasons to send applications early is because admissions professionals get fatigued after reviewing a couple hundred essays and applications?
No, I don't. I would not. That's a good question. It's a very good question because obviously there are hundreds and thousands of essays being read. The reason for application deadlines and having earlier deadlines and later deadlines is to allow committees an opportunity to pace themselves so that, especially if it's a program that receives more applications. At the University of Chicago, we receive several thousand applications every year for an incoming class of MBA students of 500. And if we had received them all at one deadline time, it would have been very difficult and time-consuming to try to read all those applications in an appropriate amount of time. So it's more an idea of just pacing yourself or giving the admissions staff an opportunity to have the time to adequately read the essays that are submitted. I don't recall, I'm telling you the honest truth here, I do not ever recall admissions committee members telling me they were fatigued or that they got really tired from reading essays. In fact, I think the more we went along as the season progressed, the better we got at actually reading the essays. So I don't believe it's an issue of a fatigue factor. I think it's more just an idea of pacing yourself and being able to have adequate time to read the essays that these applicants have taken time to submit. These are great questions.
And they just keep coming in.
Good.
So this one is from Olitan, and they're asking, how do you explain to the admissions committee that you were previously dismissed from an institution for not meeting their academic standards?
I think you would, that's a very good question, and if you want to chat with me more about that specifically later on, I'll put my email address. In fact, if it's okay, Laura, I'm going to put my email address here on the screen again so people can take a look here. My email address and my phone number is at the bottom of this slide. So after I answer some of these questions, if you want to have further contact with me, please feel free. The best approach is always the honest approach. And if this is what happened, first of all, you're not alone. There are many hundreds of thousands of graduate students, or there are many hundreds of graduate students every year who would have a similar situation to yours. This is not uncommon. I'm glad you're feeling that you're comfortable enough to ask about it. And what you need to simply do is state that this is what happened. If you believe that you can provide a bit of information about explaining, not making excuses, but if you need to do some explaining of here's what was happening at that time, and then you could say something about, and since then, here's what I've been doing, or here's how I've continued to move on since that happened. Actually, one of the things that helps applicants stand out is when they've overcome a difficult situation and they've had a hurdle in their life, which many of us do in various ways, and they've overcome it and they've moved beyond it and they've learned from it. If you can demonstrate that will not hurt you. That will not hurt you at all. Now, if this was more recent, it may not hurt you to take one graduate level course currently as you're applying so that you could submit a grade. Just can be one course. It doesn't have to be a difficult course. But if you're intending to show that you have the ability to succeed academically now in your graduate career, then maybe taking a course right now and getting an A or a B would go a long way in proving your point and letting them know that you really have overcome that hurdle. Very good question.
Okay, and this next one's for me, Don, so I'm going to take it.
Okay.
Will we be able to receive a copy of this presentation? And the answer for everybody is yes. It will be made available through GoToWebinar, and we'll also be publishing it on our site. So that's an easy one.
Good.
Here's another one for you, Dr. Martin, from James. How do admissions committees evaluate professional experience? Is it a good thing or a bad thing to have experience?
Oh, I think it's always good to have experience. And the broader answer to your question, I think the person's name was James. The broader answer to that question is that the admissions committee will evaluate everything you submit to them. So if you have professional experience to add to your academic credentials and your internship experience or whatever, they will absolutely take a look at that. In fact, some programs want professional experience in addition to undergraduate work. they will, as I think maybe some of you know, if not many of you, for an MBA program, for instance, most business schools for a full-time MBA program require at least 2 years of professional work experience before you apply. So this is not a hindrance. In many cases, it's a help. It provides you an opportunity to show not only what you did as an undergraduate student in your academic work, but what you've been doing now since you graduated and how that has impacted your experience, your skill set, and what you bring to the table in graduate school. So I think that's a very excellent thing to be able to demonstrate. Good question.
Okay, moving right along because I want to get in as many as possible.
Okay.
This is from Kevin. Is it advisable to move from one graduate school to another after a year?
Good. Boy, you guys are asking great questions. Kevin, that's a good one too. Absolutely. It's advisable under a couple of circumstances. If you have found that the program you're in is not meeting your needs, it's just not what you thought it was going to be or whatever, absolutely you should consider making a change. If you've discovered that maybe there was one program that you started out being very interested in and you've now switched gears a little bit and you don't want to spend the time going through an entire 2-year program, let's say, and you want to shift to somewhere else, or if you're staying in the same program and you feel you have a better option somewhere else, any of those reasons, to me, absolutely. Now, what you would need to consider is that when you do apply for another program, you're going to need to be able to state very clearly why it is that you are wanting to leave your program kind of in the middle or without finishing. But there's nothing wrong with that, provided you explain it effectively. You also need to consider the fact that in many instances, in terms of transfer credit, at the graduate level, that's a bit of a different procedure than at the undergraduate level. You probably will not get as many credits, if any, should you transfer into another program. If you're transferring into the same exact program somewhere else, it's a little more likely that they might give you 1 or 2 courses, but you may have to consider kind of starting over for the most part. That's the one thing you'd have to take into account and check very closely what would be the transfer policy. But moving from one program to another without finishing the one you were in, that is a fairly common question and fairly common occurrence, and there's nothing wrong with that. Good question.
Okay, this one's from Fayez. In the cover letter, if I know a faculty member who's also a member of the admissions committee, should I talk about his work as an example of my interest in both the major and the university?
Absolutely. If that is one of the reasons that drew you to this institution, if you can honestly say, look, this is why one of the reasons I want to be here, and again, that would be very unique to that program because that faculty member obviously doesn't teach anywhere else. So that would be one reason that specifically applies to that program and that program alone. Absolutely, yes, I would suggest mentioning that. Now, I don't believe you would do this, but just let me say it. You obviously don't want to allude to the fact that this person's on the admissions committee. That's something left out of your letter, and I'm assuming that you already knew that, but I just wanted to make sure to say it.
Okay. We have another question from Lucia. In regards to recommendations, I've been out of school for 3 years now and had a dual major. I think a political science professor would be strongest for my program, but my class sizes were quite large and he didn't know me very well. For some foreign schools, they require references to be both academic and professional, so I need to use this professor even though he doesn't know me quite well. Do you have any advice for me?
Yes, I think it makes sense what you're saying, Lucia. I would strongly urge you to have a conversation with this person before they write a letter. I think you ought to speak with them. I think you should send them your resume. Give them as much up-to-date information on what's going on with you so that they can speak somewhat effectively about you at this point in your career since you've been out, I believe you said, for 3 years. I do understand that in some cases you do need to submit an academic recommendation, that's an actual part of the requirements. And again, as I said earlier, if that's what they're asking, that's what you do. But since it's been 3 years out, I would think if this professor is willing, it would be helpful for you to have a chat with him or her and make sure they have your resume and some additional information about what you've been doing, what you want to do. All of that would be very helpful before they write the letter. Good question.
Okay, we're going to keep on moving.
Okay. I'm glad I shortened a bit of my comments, or that my presentation didn't go as long, Laura, because I had a feeling we'd have questions, and this is great.
Yeah, we have such a great group today. Thank you all so much for being so engaged.
Absolutely.
This next one is very interesting. How do admissions committees view video essays in place of a writing sample or personal statement? This is from Jordan.
Well, Jordan, that's a good question. If they are requiring it, then that means they really do want to use this as a means of getting to know you better. And I think that in some cases, video essays or video presentations are used, since not as many graduate programs do personal interviews anymore. Unfortunately, I think this is one of the mistakes that graduate professionals are making, is not using interviews like they used to, but that be that as it may, that's the reality. So this may be a way of them getting to know you a little bit off the paper, where you can come to life a little bit in a presentation you make, or a PowerPoint slideshow, or something that's just a little different than the traditional form of essays. So it would be my sense that those that are requiring this as one of the essays or part of the application obviously value it. If you choose to do something in an optional way, again, I think that's very creative, as long as you are yourself and you come across as yourself, so that when they meet you, they're going to realize that this is the same person that did this presentation, that you aren't two different people. But no, I think it's a very useful way of helping the admissions committee to learn more about you.
Okay. This is from Steve, and Steve, in the interest of time, I'm going to modify your question a little bit, because I know this is a topic that Dr. Martin can talk about for hours. And what are your top 3 suggestions for individuals interested in applying for a master's program abroad?
Oh, I would think it would be wonderful. There are absolutely phenomenal excuse me, graduate programs offered all over the world, and the quality of these programs only continues to grow. And I certainly believe it's an absolutely viable option. I believe that once you finish a program abroad, your chances of coming back to the U.S. are just as strong as if you stayed here for your graduate study. I don't think there's any difference there. And once again, in terms of resources, to find programs you're interested in overseas, GradSchools.com. And Laura, I'm going to ask you to help me at the end of this question, because I know there are 2 other available options here. Universitiesabroad.com, I believe. I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing that right. But anyway, in addition to GradSchools.com, Steve, there are other options that Education Dynamics, which owns GradSchools.com, offers you in that way, for you to do some research and find out what's available. Or again, you could go on the internet and plug in graduate programs in this field in this part of the world, in Europe or Asia or Australia or South America or whatever. And Laura, I'm going to ask you again to make sure I said right what those other options are besides GradSchools.com.
Certainly. StudyAbroad.com might be a great resource for you, Steve. And the StudyAbroad.com. And it's an excellent site and a great way to research. Also, international programs that maybe aren't full-time or full year, but you can still grab that international experience without making the full commitment to spending a significant duration of time studying abroad. So
Thanks,
there's a lot.
Laura.
No problem. Here is another question from Joseph. How would you present yourself as a great applicant if you had just been sacked from a program due to poor academic performance? I think this is kind of similar to the question before, but I wanted to make sure we addressed Joseph.
That's all right. This does happen, and again, you need to address this honestly. Do not feel badly. Don't act like you're a huge failure, because you're not. We all have times in life where we either make mistakes or something happens to us that's beyond our control, and it results in some things that happen that we wish hadn't. And we all know that. Every admissions committee member is a human being, and they've made mistakes in their life, or they've had difficult situations. It's not about what happened to you as much as what you've done about it, what you've learned from it, and how you've moved forward. And if you're able to address that appropriately with the admissions committee, you will not, if you don't get in, it won't be because of that particular instance or that incident. That will not be the case. If you adequately address it, it will not be viewed as a negative or a huge red flag that will stand in your way. I promise you that. And again, if any of you have questions on these specific types of items that you'd like to discuss with me one-on-one privately, or offline, so to speak, my email address is on the screen, as is my phone number. So don't be a stranger if that would help.
Okay. Our next question is from Felicia. If you've been out of school for a while, in my case 7 years, is it appropriate to ask for letters of recommendations from your previous professors? Also, if you've only taken one class with an online professor, would that be a good choice for a letter of recommendation?
Good question. I do think if you've been out 7 years, that's a bit long. That's a very long time to go back and have someone recommend you. I would not, if I were coaching you one-on-one, I would urge you not to do that. I think what I would more likely suggest is that you take a course, if you've taken an online course, if that's more recent, that you have that professor do a recommendation for you, or if you haven't taken a more recent course, that you do so and have the individual who's teaching the course do that letter of recommendation, because 7 years out of undergrad is really a long time. And I think that even the only way I would suggest that is if you've really kept in touch with a professor who's stayed in touch, followed your career, and can really speak in the present about knowing you and being in touch with you. But if you'd have to go back and find someone to write a letter after all these years that really hasn't kept in touch, I think that would not be as effective or helpful.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Here's one from Marja.
Okay.
Is it more difficult to get into graduate school in the USA if you have finished undergraduate studies in Europe at not one of the more famous universities than if you have finished your undergraduate studies in the United States? So
I guess, it's a good question. For some institutions in the United States that consider themselves more prestigious or selective, yes, it may be an issue. I'm not saying it would completely stand in the way of your being admitted. Excuse me. But at the end of the day, if you do the best you can to put your best foot forward as an applicant, you express yourself well, you write good essays, you get good letters of recommendation, you adequately sell the admissions committee on what it is you're wanting to do, why you believe that institution will help you get there, what you want to do when you finish, and why you believe you would make a contribution to that program, I think many schools will take a look at you, the individual, and what you bring to the table. And if they don't know your undergrad institution as well, if you're an international student, there are resources available to graduate admissions offices. We use them all the time at Columbia, Chicago, and Northwestern to help us understand more about an institution that we were not as familiar with. And that didn't mean at all that some of those students going to those institutions that we were not as familiar with didn't end up getting admitted. They did. So in my opinion, it's about doing good research, as I said at the start of my presentation, finding a program that you believe is a good match for you, that works for you, helping to articulate to them that you did your research, you've chosen them, here's why, here's what you think you can gain from them, what you believe they will gain by having you there and putting your best foot forward. That, to me, always, always helps. Whether you're going from the U.S. abroad, from the abroad to the U.S., whether you're studying, living and studying abroad, or living and studying in the U.S., any of those options. Good question.
I think we have time for just a few more.
All right.
At this point, I'd like to recommend to anyone whose question we didn't get to either reach out to Dr. Martin at his email address or via phone with your questions, or you can certainly reach out to me and I can connect you to Dr. Martin as well.
Or if I may I just interject something here before we finish?
Sure.
I just wanted to also mention, as I said at the top of the program and as Laura indicated, I have written a book called Roadmap for Graduate Study, a guide for prospective graduate students. My website address is www.gradschoolroadmap.com. It just, if you're looking at my email address there on the screen, if you just replace dmartin@ with www. You'll get to my website. You can order the book there. If you're an international student and you order the book and show me proof, I will send you free of charge my international student supplement, which was produced a year after I wrote the book. And I hope some of you will consider purchasing. It's a great resource to add to what we've been talking about today. Okay, Laura, thanks a lot for letting me share that.
No problem. It's a really valuable guide. I think that everybody would learn a lot from reading it. So,
thank you.
Thank you. So Abhishek, and I'm sorry because I can't pronounce that name very well, asked if these 7 tips are also translatable for an international student who wants to be positively noted.
Absolutely. Absolutely. These are appropriate. It's a very good question. But keeping your cool, smiling, following directions, sending a cover letter, asking good questions, letting them know you want to be there, using good recommenders, all of that, all of those tips apply regardless of what country you live in and what country it is you want to study it. They apply across the board. Absolutely. Good question.
And let's close with a question from Sophia. This is pretty specific, but I think it's a great example of the kind of questions that we're all asking.
All right.
Professional career thus far doesn't lend itself to the graduate program you're interested. For example, I'm an estimator for water projects. My path of interest is in sustainability, engineering, and development. I do participate in outside organizations like the USGBC. I have green certifications and things like that. Does that help?
Absolutely, yes. And I'm so glad to have this question raised. It's a very good one. Moving from one area of work or academic background into another field of study at the graduate level is done quite often. And it's not so much that you absolutely have to have a lot of experience coming into the program as that you've had some exposure to this field and that you are able to really articulate what you believe it is that causes you to or will cause you to succeed as a graduate student in this new field that you're pursuing and beyond. When I worked at the Chicago School of Business, we had students from every imaginable background admitted to the MBA program. We were not admitting investment bankers and consultants by the droves. I mean, yes, we had some with that background, of course, but there were journalists, authors, sports figures, lawyers, doctors, Peace Corps workers, Teach for America educators, just any number of backgrounds coming into the business field. So if you're able to demonstrate that you have an interest in this particular field of study and there's some exposure you've had to it, in this case I believe you said you've had some various organizations that you participated with and been involved in, I think that is absolutely fine to share. It's going to be most important to them what it is you want to do, why you want to do it, why at that institution, and what it is about your preparation thus far that they believe would lend you to be successful in that pursuit. These have been phenomenal. Honestly, Laura, these are some of the best questions I think I've ever had after a presentation. I'm absolutely overjoyed with the level of questions. It shows this group was really listening and participating.
Yeah, I think that I learned something today as well. So
thank
you so much for your time with this, Dr. Martin, and
thank you
for your insight. And I think we all gained some valuable information about how to approach the graduate school application. So again, if anybody has any more specific questions, please feel free to reach out to Dr. Martin or myself if you would like me to connect you to him. Visit our site to search for graduate programs at www.GradSchools.com or our other sites if you're interested in study abroad, studyabroad.com, and keep an eye out for future webinars. And thank you all so much for this level of participation. This was really, really exciting.
Yes, thank you so much. I echo that. And good luck to everyone.
Yes, best of luck, and have a great weekend.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Don.
Thank you. Bye-bye.